Your grandparents knew something we've forgotten. They grew vegetables that laughed at drought, stored through winter without a freezer, and tasted so good you'd never touch the bland supermarket stuff again. Hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss these garden secrets. Because what I'm about to share could completely transform your garden and your dinner table. We're diving into 15 incredible vegetables that fed families through the Depression, through world wars, through every challenge you can imagine, and we stopped growing them. Why? Because grocery stores convinced us that 20 varieties of lettuce and perfect red tomatoes were all we needed, but your grandparents, they knew better. These forgotten gems are more nutritious, more resilient, and honestly, they taste absolutely amazing. If you're serious about growing real food that actually performs when times get tough, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because we're counting down from 15 to 1, and trust me, number 1 will blow your mind. Let's rediscover what we lost. Number 15. Ground cherries. Your grandmother probably called these husked tomatoes, and she grew them along the garden fence, where they sprawled and produced hundreds of little golden fruits wrapped in papery lanterns. Pop one in your mouth and you get this incredible tropical flavor, like pineapple met vanilla met the sweetest cherry tomato you've ever tasted. They're absolutely addictive. Here, what's wild, ground cherries are in the same family as tomatoes, but they're tougher, more forgiving, and they'll produce in soil where regular tomatoes would just sulk. During the Victory Garden era, these were everywhere because families needed reliable crops, and ground cherries delivered every single time. Nutritionally, they're packed with vitamin C and antioxidants. They're also one of the few fruits that actually taste better after a light frost. The cold converts their starches to sugars and intensifies that tropical sweetness. Why you need them now? Climate uncertainty. Ground cherries handle heat stress better than tomatoes. They resist common pests, and once established, they'll often reseed themselves year after year. Plus, those fruits store for weeks in their husks. Your grandparents kept them in baskets right through Thanksgiving. This is resilient, delicious food that modern gardens desperately need. Number 14. Stinging nettles. Yes, they sting. Yes, your grandparents still grew them on purpose, and once you understand why, you'll want them too. Stinging nettles were the ultimate spring tonic, the first fresh green that appeared when winter finally broke. European immigrants brought nettle seeds to America because they knew this plant was nutritional gold. Your great-grandmother would harvest them wearing gloves, blanch them quickly to neutralize the sting, and use them exactly like spinach in soups, pastas, and pestos. The flavor, earthy, rich, deep, like the best spinach you've ever had but with more character. Here's the nutritional powerhouse part. Nettles contain more protein than most leafy greens. They're loaded with iron, calcium, magnesium, and vitamins A and C before vitamin supplements existed. Spring nettles literally restored people's health after long winters of stored food. And they're perennial. Plant them once in a contained area because yes, they spread, and you'll harvest nutrient-dense greens every spring for decades. They're also drought-tolerant once established, and they thrive in partial shade where other vegetables struggle. Why now? Because we're rediscovering that food is medicine. And nettles deliver serious nutrition without any inputs from you. They're the ultimate low-maintenance, high-reward perennial vegetable. Your body will thank you. Number 13. Collard greens. If your grandparents lived in the South, collard were non-negotiable. These tough, gorgeous leaves fed families year-round because they're practically indestructible. And that's exactly why you need to reconsider them, even if you're not Southern. Collard are part of the brassica family, related to kale and cabbage, but they're the tough older sibling that doesn't complain. They handle summer heat that makes lettuce bolt instantly. They sweeten up after frost and keep producing through winter in many zones. Your grandparents planted them in late summer and harvested fresh greens through Thanksgiving, Christmas, and beyond. The flavor when cooked low and slow. Silky, savory with a slight sweetness, and none of that bitter edge raw kale can have. And nutritionally, collard are absolutely spectacular, off-the-charts vitamin K, tons of vitamin A, calcium, and fiber. They're one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. Here's the resilience factor: collard produce abundantly even in poor soil. They're pest-resistant compared to delicate lettuces. You can harvest outer leaves continuously while the plant keeps growing. It's a cut-and-come-again crop that just keeps giving. Why you need them now: food security. When summer scorches your lettuce and winter freezes your spinach, collard just stand there producing food. They're the reliable friend your garden needs when everything else quits. Grow them like your grandparents did, you'll never run out of greens. Number 12. Turnips. Turnips got a bad reputation somewhere along the way, but your grandparents understood their genius. They fed both people and livestock, they stored through winter, and every part was edible and delicious. Here, what we forgot: young turnips harvested small are sweet and crisp with a mild, peppery flavor that's absolutely nothing like the woody, bitter monsters some people remember from bad cafeteria experiences. Roasted with butter, incredible; grated raw into salads, refreshing and crunchy. And the greens: turnip greens are a delicacy, tender and flavorful, even better than the roots. During the Depression and through both world wars, turnips were survival food. They grew fast, some varieties mature in just 40 days, they tolerated cold, they stored in root cellars for months. One crop fed families from fall straight through to spring. Nutritionally, turnips deliver vitamin C, fiber, and important minerals. The greens are packed with vitamins A, C, and K. And here's the cool part: turnips actually improve the soil they grow in, breaking up clay and adding organic matter when you till the greens back in. Why now? Because we need fast-growing, dual-purpose crops that don't demand perfect conditions. Turnips produce in spring or fall, they handle frost, and you can succession plant them for continuous harvests. They're the ultimate practical vegetable, and when grown right, they're absolutely delicious. Your grandparents were onto something big. Number 11. Mangoldwurzel. Okay, this one sounds like something from a fairy tale, but mangoldwurzels are real. They're spectacular, and your great-grandparents absolutely grew them. Especially if they kept chickens, pigs, or cows. Mangoldwurzels are massive beets, we're talking roots that can grow 20 pounds or more. They're technically fodder beets, bred for livestock feed. But here's the secret: young mangoldwurzels are completely edible for humans, and they're sweet, earthy, and packed with nutrition. European settlers brought them to America because one crop could feed an entire homestead through winter. The tops grow huge and leafy, you can harvest those greens like chard all season. The roots themselves store for 6 months or more in a cool, dark place without any processing. No canning, no freezing, just dig them up and store them. Your grandparents knew this was security. Nutritionally, mangoldwurzels are high in fiber, minerals, and complex carbohydrates. They're sustaining food that keeps you full and energized. Why you need them now? Imagine a crop that produces massive amounts of storable food with almost zero care. Mangoldwurzels tolerate poor soil, they're drought-resistant once established. And if you keep chickens or livestock, they're absolute gold for winter feed. Even if you don't, growing a few mangoldwurzels gives you a buffer, real food security that doesn't depend on electricity or perfect conditions. This is old wisdom that's becoming new wisdom fast. Number 10. Celeriac, also called celery root. Celeriac looks like something that belongs in a haunted forest, knobby, rough, weird. But your European grandparents took one look at this gnarly root and saw winter luxury. Cut through that rough exterior and you find pale, creamy flesh that tastes like the most elegant celery you've ever had. Concentrated, aromatic, slightly nutty. Roasted, it caramelizes beautifully. Mashed with potatoes, it adds incredible depth. In soups and stews, it's absolutely transformative. And raw, grated into remoulade, it's a classic French bistro dish that's been loved for centuries. Celeriac was a staple in root cellars because it stores for months without losing flavor or nutrition. Your grandparents planted it in spring, harvested it after the first frost when the flavor peaked, and enjoyed it all winter long. Nutritionally, celeriac is rich in vitamin K, vitamin C, phosphorus, and fiber. It's lower in starch than potatoes but just as satisfying, making it perfect for hearty winter meals. Here's the resilience factor. Celeriac handles cold weather beautifully. Frost actually improves the flavor. It grows in soil that's too heavy for carrots, and unlike celery stalks which are fussy and bitter if stressed, celeriac just quietly produces this incredible edible root. Why now? We've outsourced flavor to supermarkets that prioritize shelf life and appearance over taste. Celeriac is the opposite. It's ugly, it's old-fashioned, and it tastes absolutely phenomenal. Grow this and you'll understand why your grandparents never stopped. Number 9. Sea kale. Sea kale sounds exotic, but it was a beloved perennial vegetable in English and European gardens for hundreds of years. And some of your grandparents, especially those from coastal regions or with European roots, absolutely grew it. This is a perennial brassica that grows wild on ocean beaches, which tells you everything about its toughness. Sea kale produces thick, silvery blue leaves and stalks that, when blanched by covering the plant in early spring, become tender, mild, and absolutely delicious, like the most delicate asparagus with a slight nuttiness. Victorian gardeners obsessed over sea kale because it was one of the first fresh vegetables of spring, arriving when everything else was still dormant. Your grandparents would force it under pots to get early white shoots. And those shoots were considered a genuine delicacy. Nutritionally, sea kale is rich in vitamin C and minerals. As a perennial, it comes back year after year with zero replanting. It's also salt-tolerant and thrives in sandy, poor soil where other vegetables struggle. Why you need it now? Perennial vegetables are the future of resilient gardening. They require less work, less water, and they provide food year after year without the constant cycle of planting. Sea kale gives you gourmet spring harvests for decades from a single planting. In a world where we're realizing that annual monocultures aren't sustainable, perennials like sea kale are coming back strong, and your grandparents were already growing them. Number 8. Skirret. Skirret is a vegetable so old that Shakespeare mentioned it, and your great-great-grandparents probably grew it without a second thought. Skirret is a perennial root vegetable with clusters of small, sweet, white roots that taste like a cross between carrots, parsnips, and sweet potatoes, except better. The flavor is delicate, naturally sweet, and almost dessert-like when roasted. Medieval and Renaissance Europeans loved skirret so much it was in nearly every kitchen garden. It was especially popular because it's completely cold-hardy. You could dig the roots in the middle of winter. Your grandparents appreciated perennials that didn't require replanting, and skirret delivered year after year. The roots are packed with complex carbohydrates and they're filling and satisfying. The plant itself is also beautiful, with delicate white flowers that attract beneficial insects, so it pulls double duty as food and pollinator support. Here's the kicker: skirret is incredibly easy to grow. It tolerates shade, poor soil, and neglect. Once established, it's basically indestructible. You harvest some roots, leave some to regrow, and the cycle continues indefinitely. Why now? We're rediscovering that the best garden is one that takes care of itself. Perennial vegetables like skirret are lower maintenance, more sustainable, and they produce unique flavors you literally cannot buy. If you want to grow something rare, delicious, and historically significant, skirret is your answer. Your ancestors knew, it's time we remembered. Number 7. Good King Henry. Good King Henry, with a name like that, how could you not grow it? Good King Henry is a perennial leafy green that European settlers brought to America because it was simply too useful to leave behind. This plant is like spinach, asparagus, and broccoli had a baby. In early spring, you harvest the young shoots like asparagus. They're tender, mild, and delicious steamed or sautéed. As the plant matures, you harvest the leaves like spinach. They're rich, earthy, and incredibly nutritious. You can even eat the flower buds like tiny broccoli florets. 3 vegetables in one plant, and it's perennial, coming back bigger and more productive every year. Your grandparents, especially those from England or Northern Europe, grew Good King Henry because it thrived in cool climates and produced food from early spring through fall. It was reliable, abundant, and required almost no care. Nutritionally, it's a powerhouse, high in iron, calcium, vitamins A and C, and protein for a leafy green. It's sustaining, real food that actually nourishes you. Here, why it faded: supermarkets don't sell perennials. They sell annuals you have to buy again and again. Good King Henry doesn't fit that model, so it disappeared. Why you need it now: food independence. One plant planted once gives you harvests for 10 years or more. It tolerates poor soil, shade, and cold. It's the ultimate low-input, high-output vegetable. Your grandparents understood resilience, and Good King Henry is resilience embodied. Number 6. Hamburg parsley. You know regular parsley, the garnish everyone ignores. Hamburg parsley is its incredibly useful cousin that your grandparents actually relied on, and once you grow it, you'll wonder why anyone settles for regular parsley. Hamburg parsley gives you two crops. The leaves taste exactly like flat-leaf parsley, fresh, bright. Perfect for cooking, but the real treasure is the root, a thick, white, carrot-shaped root. That tastes like parsley and parsnips combined, with a deep, aromatic, almost celery-like flavor. It's phenomenal roasted, mashed, or added to soups and stews. This was a staple in German and Eastern European gardens. Your grandparents grew it because you got herbs all summer and then harvested the roots in fall to store through winter. 2-for-1 efficiency that made perfect sense when garden space was limited and every crop had to earn its place. The roots store beautifully in root cellars or even in the ground under mulch. Nutritionally, they're rich in vitamins and minerals, and the leaves are loaded with vitamin C and antioxidants. Here's the growing advantage: Hamburg parsley is easier than carrots, it tolerates heavier soil and isn't as fussy about conditions. It's biennial, so if you leave some roots in the ground, they'll flower the next year and provide seeds for free replanting. Why now? We've separated our herbs from our vegetables, but why? Hamburg parsley shows us that food can multitask. It's practical, it's delicious, and it's exactly the kind of smart, efficient crop we need as we rebuild food resilience. Number 5. Jerusalem artichokes. Also called sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes are neither from Jerusalem nor artichokes. They are absolutely incredible, and your grandparents grew them because they're virtually indestructible. These are the tubers of a tall, sunflower-like plant native to North America. Indigenous peoples cultivated them for centuries before Europeans arrived. The tubers are knobby, earthy-looking, and when you cook them, they're nutty, slightly sweet, with a texture like the best roasted potatoes but with way more flavor complexity. Here's the magic: Jerusalem artichokes are perennial. Plant them once and they'll multiply and produce food every single fall for the rest of your life. They tolerate terrible soil, drought, and neglect. They'll grow in full sun or partial shade. Honestly, the bigger challenge is controlling them. They're enthusiastic growers. Nutritionally, Jerusalem artichokes are high in iron, potassium, and inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. They're lower glycemic than potatoes, making them fantastic for sustained energy. Your grandparents loved them because they required zero maintenance and produced abundant food. Dig some tubers in fall, leave some in the ground, and they regrow next year automatically. Why you need them now? Imagine a crop that never needs replanting, handles climate stress, and produces pounds of delicious food every year without you doing anything. That's Jerusalem artichokes. In a world where food security is increasingly uncertain, having perennial crops that literally take care of themselves is pure gold. Plant them this year, future you will be so grateful. Number 4. Scorzonera. Scorzonera, also called black salsify, is a root vegetable with black skin and white flesh that your European grandparents grew with serious dedication, and modern foodies are finally rediscovering why. Peel away that dark skin and you reveal flesh that tastes like oysters. Yes, oysters. It has this delicate, almost seafood-like flavor that's completely unique in the vegetable world. The French call it vegetable oyster, and they've been cooking with it for centuries. It's sweet and nutty. In cream sauces, it's absolutely luxurious. Scorzonera was common in European kitchen gardens because it stored incredibly well, sometimes for 6 months or more in a root cellar. And it provided gourmet flavor through the winter when fresh food was scarce. Nutritionally, scorzonera is high in inulin, vitamins, and minerals. It's also very low calorie but deeply satisfying, making it perfect for hearty winter meals. Here's the resilience part: Scorzonera is a perennial. You can harvest the roots after 1 year, or leave them to get bigger and more productive in year 2. The plant is drought-tolerant, cold-hardy, and thrives in deep soil where it sends down long taproots. Why now? Flavor. We've forgotten what real flavor tastes like because supermarkets prioritize shipping and shelf life. Scorzonera can't be mass-produced efficiently, so it disappeared. But you can grow it, and when you taste it, you'll understand exactly why your grandparents made space for it every single year. This is flavor worth fighting for. Number 3, salsify. White salsify is Scorzonera's close cousin, similar oyster-like flavor, similar growing habits, but with pale, beige roots instead of black. Your grandparents often grew both, and honestly you should too. Salsify has that same delicate oyster meets parsnip flavor that makes it incredible in creamy soups, gratins, or simply roasted with butter. Victorian and Edwardian cooks considered it essential for winter menus, and homesteaders across America grew it because it was reliable, storable, and delicious. The roots can stay in the ground through winter in many climates. Just mulch them heavily and dig as needed. Your grandparents called this nature's refrigerator. No canning, no root cellar needed, just harvest from the frozen ground when you're ready to cook. Salsify is also biennial. If you leave some roots in the ground, they'll flower in year 2 with gorgeous purple blooms that attract pollinators like crazy. Then they set seed, and you get free salsify plants forever. Nutritionally, salsify delivers fiber, potassium, and complex carbohydrates. It's sustaining, nourishing food that keeps you full and energized through cold months. Why you need it now? We're relearning that food security means growing what stores well naturally, without electricity or processing. Salsify is a root vegetable that literally refrigerates itself in your garden. It's gourmet, it's unique, and it embodies the kind of resilient, practical gardening wisdom that got our grandparents through everything. This vegetable deserves a comeback. Number 2, parsnips. Parsnips are finally getting some recognition again, but we still don't grow them like our grandparents did, and we should. Because they understood something crucial: parsnips are cold weather magic. A parsnip looks like a pale carrot, but the flavor is completely different: sweet, nutty, with hints of vanilla and spice, especially after frost. And that's the key: frost transforms parsnips. The cold converts their starches into sugars, making them incredibly sweet and complex. Your grandparents planted them in spring, left them in the ground through fall and winter, and harvested them after hard freezes when the flavor was absolute perfection. Roasted parsnips caramelize beautifully. Mashed with butter, they're like the most elegant comfort food. In stews and soups, they add depth and natural sweetness that refined sugar could never match. Nutritionally, parsnips are high in fiber, folate, vitamin C, and potassium. They're filling, satisfying, and they provide sustained energy, exactly what you need in winter. Here's the resilience angle: parsnips are biennial and incredibly cold-hardy. They'll sit in frozen ground waiting for you. They improve difficult soil with their deep taproots, and they're virtually pest-free compared to carrots. Why now? Because we've been taught that vegetables need to be picked before frost, rushed to market, and eaten quickly. Parsnips laugh at that. They're patient, they're better when left alone in the cold. They're the ultimate winter vegetable, and your grandparents built entire winter menus around them. It's time to remember why. Number 1, rutabaga. The king of forgotten vegetables, the ultimate resilience crop. The vegetable your grandparents absolutely depended on, and the one modern gardeners need most. Rutabagas are a cross between turnips and cabbage, and they took the best of both. They're large, sweet, and incredibly cold-hardy. The flavor after frost is phenomenal: sweet, earthy, buttery, with none of the sharpness raw turnips can have. Roasted, they caramelize into candy. Mashed, they're rich and satisfying. In pasties and stews, they add depth that potatoes just can't match. During World War I and II, rutabagas kept people alive. They were called victory roots because they produced massive amounts of food on minimal resources. Your grandparents planted them in summer, harvested in late fall, and stored them in root cellars where they'd last until spring, 6 months of fresh food with zero refrigeration. Nutritionally, rutabagas are loaded with vitamin C, fiber, potassium, and antioxidants. They're low in calories but high in satisfaction. They're real, nourishing food. Here, why they're number one: rutabagas tolerate terrible soil, they handle drought. They resist pests, they store longer than almost any vegetable. One crop can feed your family for months. And in a changing climate with unpredictable growing seasons, rutabagas just produce. Why you need them now? Because resilience isn't optional anymore. Because food security starts in your own garden. Because your grandparents knew that rutabagas were insurance, reliable, storable, delicious insurance against uncertainty. Grow rutabagas, rediscover why they mattered. This is the vegetable that deserves the top spot. Because this is the vegetable that will never let you down. There they are, 15 forgotten vegetables that fed our grandparents through everything history threw at them. These aren't just nostalgic relics, they're nutritional powerhouses, they're climate resilient. They're storable, sustainable, and honestly, they taste incredible. We've spent decades chasing perfect supermarket produce while these treasures disappeared from our gardens and our memories. But you can bring them back, you can grow food that actually performs when it matters. You can taste the difference that real, heritage vegetables make. Start with just one this season. Maybe it's the easy perennial abundance of Jerusalem artichokes. Maybe it's the cold weather perfection of parsnips or rutabagas. Maybe you're drawn to the gourmet uniqueness of scorzonera or the multi-purpose genius of Hamburg parsley. Whatever calls to you, plant it, grow it, taste it, and you'll understand exactly why your grandparents never stopped. Which of these forgotten gems will you grow first? Drop it in the comments below. I want to know what's calling to you, and I'll be down there answering questions and sharing more tips. If you loved this journey back to real food, real flavor, and real resilience, hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and share this video with someone who needs better taste and more security in their garden. We're bringing back the old ways, the ways that worked better, and you're part of that movement. Thanks for growing with me. I'll see you in the next one. Now go plant something your grandparents would be proud of.